Ever get that feeling of quiet focus, that almost serene clarity just by being around trees?
Oh, yeah, definitely. That sense of calm.
We're going to plunge into some really interesting ideas behind that very feeling today.
Sounds good.
Welcome to this deep dive. We're taking a close look at how forests, trees, might actually influence our brainwaves.
Mm-hmm.
Think of this as us pulling out the core ideas from discussions in, like, neuroscience and environmental psychology.
Right, focusing on how nature, especially woods and forests, could be affecting what's actually happening inside our heads.
Exactly. And our mission here really is to understand the current thinking on this connection,
Yeah.
separating intriguing possibilities from, well, solid science.
So you can walk away with some genuinely useful insights.
Yeah,
And what's immediately compelling, I think, is this interception of our personal feeling, that often intuitive sense of well-being in nature,
right.
and the scientific attempt to measure and understand it through brain activity. And the material we looked at really starts there.
Okay, so let's really dig into this. Our sources mention brain waves quite a bit. Alpha, gamma, and delta seem to come up most often.
Yeah, those are key ones.
For a clearer picture, could you maybe outline what these are, just a bit more detail on what mental states they tend to line up with?
Sure, happy to. So brain waves fundamentally are just the rhythmic electrical activity going on in our brains. Different frequencies, different speeds of these waves are linked to different states of mind.
Okay.
Gamma waves are the fastest. They're generally thought to be involved when you're doing higher level thinking, processing complex stuff, really focused attention.
Right, intense focus. Yeah,
Exactly. Then at the other end, you've got delta waves. They're the slowest and they're dominant when you're in that deep restorative sleep, really out of it.
got it. Deep sleep.
And then sort of in the middle are the alpha waves.
Well,
Mid-range frequency, these often pop up when you're awake but relaxed. That state of calm alertness.
ah, okay.
Yeah.
Awake but chill.
Precisely. And interestingly, some research suggests alpha waves might also have a role in integrating information, maybe helping get you into that flow state.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, connecting back to the trees. The sources point to this growing area of study suggesting time in nature, forests specifically, might actually encourage this alpha wave activity.
That's a major thread.
So what's the evidence for that? And maybe more importantly, what are the theories about why this might be happening?
Okay, so the evidence mostly comes from observational studies. Some of them actually use EEG caps to measure brain activity directly.
Right, the scalp sensors.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, there was a pretty notable study in Japan. They compared people's brain waves before and after walks in a forest versus walks in a city.
And what did they find?
Well, they observed a significant increase in alpha wave activity for the group that walked in the forest.
Wow. Okay.
And that lined up with people reporting feeling less stressed, calmer.
So the why. Why forests?
That's the million-dollar question, really. Several ideas are floating around. One is simply reduced sensory overload compared to, say, a busy street. Less noise, less frantic movement allows the brain to just relax into that alpha state.
Makes sense.
Quieter. Another idea focuses on the visual aspect. The specific kind of visual complexity in a forest, like the fractal patterns you see in branches, ferns, leaves, that might be inherently soothing or engaging for our brains in a certain way.
Fractals. Interesting. Like repeating patterns.
Kind of, yeah. Patterns that repeat at different scales. And some researchers even think that certain natural sounds or even the smells in a forest, phytoncides from trees, that sort of thing, could contribute to shifting brain activity.
So it's probably not just one thing.
Likely a combination, yeah. It's complex.
And this sort of leads us nicely into forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku. Of course, and talked about this too. It sounds like it's more than just, a casual stroll.
Exactly. Shinrin-yoku really emphasizes a mindful engagement, using all your senses deliberately. It's about consciously slowing down, noticing things. The way the light filters through the leaves, the specific sounds of birds, wind the smell of the earth, or the pine needles.
Ah, okay. Really soaking it in.
Right. The idea is that this full sensory immersion triggers physiological responses, potentially including that shift towards a more relaxed, maybe more alpha-dominant brain state.
Now, one of the sources we looked at went into slightly, let's say, more unconventional territory.
Uh-huh.
This idea of vibrational frequencies, or maybe even subtle electromagnetic signals coming from the trees themselves and potentially interacting with our brains. What's the scientific take on that right now?
Yeah, that's definitely a fascinating area of speculation. It certainly makes you think about how we interact with our environment on perhaps levels we don't usually consider.
But is there evidence?
Currently, the direct scientific evidence supporting specific vibrational or electromagnetic signals from trees measurably impacting human brainwaves. It's very limited. It's fair to say it's not established science at this point. I mean, all living things generate some kind of electromagnetic field, but the idea of a direct sort of communicative interaction at these very subtle frequencies, that needs a lot more rigorous investigation. It's still very much hypothetical.
So more research needed there. A lot more.
Definitely. But it does make you wonder about environmental factors we maybe haven't quite figured out how to measure or understand yet.
So, okay, while that direct frequency communication idea is still way out there, scientifically speaking, the sort of tangible benefits of being in nature, reduced stress, better mood, those seem increasingly well documented, right? We hear about lower blood pressure, feeling calmer, even focusing better after time outdoors.
Precisely. Yeah, absolutely. Even if we're still working out the exact neurological nuts and bolts, the patterns are pretty consistent across different studies and just, what people report experiencing.
It feels right, intuitively, for many people.
And if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, for the vast, vast majority of human history, we lived in natural landscapes, deeply embedded. It's plausible, even likely, that our brains actually evolved to function optimally, to respond positively within those kinds of environments.
We're sort of tuned to nature, perhaps.
You could put it that way, yeah. Our systems might be calibrated for it.
So bringing this all together then, what does this boil down to for you, listening right now? What's the main takeaway from this whole exploration into forests and brainwaves?
I think the most practical and sort of readily usable insight is simply to make a conscious effort to spend time in nature. Green spaces, parks, woods, whatever you have access to.
Doesn't have to be hours trekking deep into a forest.
No, probably not. Even relatively short periods, maybe say 20 minutes or so, seem to be beneficial according to some studies. And the suggestion to leave your phone behind or at least put it away.
Yeah, disconnect.
That allows for a fuller sensory experience. To actually be there. Whether the positive effects are mostly coming from boosting alpha waves or other physiological changes like lower cortisol or maybe just the quiet. Giving your brain that kind of break seems genuinely valuable.
It's a pretty accessible way to support your well-being.
Yeah, I think so.
That's a really clear and actionable piece of advice. Just stepping away from the screens, the noise, and simply being present among trees. It really could offer more benefits than we perhaps realize day to day.
It certainly seems that way.
It really makes you wonder, though, doesn't it? Could there be an even deeper connection? Maybe something we haven't fully grasped yet between us and the natural world that resonates right down at the neurological level. Something more than just feeling good because it's quiet or pretty. It's definitely something to think about.